This discussion is about ending suffering. So, to end suffering, we have to understand what is suffering and why suffering occurs. Then, when we find the reason for suffering, by getting rid of the reason, we can get rid of suffering. So, suffering is unsatisfaction or unhappiness. So, why unhappiness arises? We have a desire to things happen the way we want. So we have a plan for everything. So we want things happen a certain way. When things don't go the way we want, then we suffer. We expect our bodies to be a certain way. We expect our mind to be a certain way. We expect our surrounding to be a certain way. So when those three factors doesn't stay the way we want, we suffer. So if we could get rid of the desire we have to have them on a certain way, then we could get rid of the suffering. So we don't suffer when things change, when things doesn't happen the way we want. But getting rid of desire is not that easy. The getting rid of desire is even more suffering. When we try harder to get rid of desire, we suffer more. So, Lord Buddha found a way to get rid of the desire. Lord Buddha found that the desire is because of our ignorance, because of our lack of knowledge about our body, the mind, and the external environment. Because of our lack of knowledge about body, mind, and the external environment, we expect them to have in a certain way. We have a plan for all of them. So we don't like when that plan or that expectation change into something else. We want our body to be healthy or look certain way. When the health or the look change, we suffer. The same for the mind. We expect our mind to be certain way. When the mind change, the unhappiness arise. If it's changed the different way to what we expect, then we are not happy. Same for the external environment. The people and the things around us, when they change the way we don't like, then we suffer. So if we know the truth, the reality of the body, mind, and the external environment, then we won't have a desire to have them a certain way. So Buddha said, because we don't know about those three elements, because of our lack of knowledge, lack of wisdom, we expect them to have a certain way. So that's why that expectation, that desire lead us to suffering. So whole Buddhism is about searching the reality of those three, the body, mind, and the external environment. So when you find the reality of those three, so you won't have expectation for those three to behave or have in a certain way. The change of those three factors wouldn't affect you. So you wouldn't have suffering. So, what is body, mind, and the environment around us? Body First, look at the external environment, the people around us. We call my family, my relatives, my friends, others, animals, trees, planets, the sun, moon, all that external environment around us. The things I know and things I have imagined, they all external environment. And then the body and mind. We call my body, there's a certain part, and there is something we can't reach, but we call my mind. We don't know where it is, but we have a feeling of it, and we call that my mind. So the external environment, the feeling of the external environment, the body and mind, all three, we get to know the knowledge about all knowledge of all three coming from 6 factors. So what is our current knowledge about the body, mind, and the environment coming from? What is the source of our current knowledge? So we get to know about all these three is using our 6 sensory objects, using our sensory perception, using seeing, hearing, feeling of touch, feeling of smell, feeling of taste, and the thinking. Those 6 create the knowledge of body, mind, and the environment. So we purely trust on the knowledge we get from those 6. And then based on that knowledge, we create the desire to have those 3 on a certain way. So Buddha found our knowledge we create using those 6 is not true. We don't get to know the reality of body, mind, and the external environment using those 6 sensory perception. Buddha called those 6 sensory perception is a mirage. It's not reality. We learn about our body by just seeing through our eyes, by touching it, feeling it. Or sometimes smell. We learn about smell, taste, all that body. Same with the mind. The more we learn about mind, more by our thoughts. Our thoughts create a feeling of the mind. Same for our external environment. We learn about our friends, our mother, our father, brothers and sisters, all through what we heard. Even from the little age, we've been told, this is my mother, this is my father. So we trust what we heard. Based on that, we create our world, my family. Same, the trees, the mountains, the country, the idea of religion, the planets, the sun, moon, all this knowledge is based on what we see, what we hear, and touch, feeling of smell and the taste. Through all this sensory perception, create our environment, the world we live in, the universe. The feeling of universe created using all this sensory perception. So we don't have any doubt about our sensory perception. We think we get what we know through that is real, that what it is. And we believe it. And believing that, we create hopes and desires for them to be certain way. So Buddha, during his search to become Buddha, he realized the truth of this sixth. He found the truth of this sixth. He found that this sensory perception is not real. It is just a mirage. That's not something true. It is just an experience. It's not reality. Then that knowledge, that wisdom help to get rid of the desire that have to have them on a certain way. When getting rid of desire to have things on a certain way, that get rid of the suffering. So let's talk about how to learn about this sensory perception. If we get to learn about the truth of the sensory perception, we'll get to know the truth about the mind, body, and the external environment. So, how to find the reality of the sensory perception? Buddha told 4 steps to follow to find the truth. First one is to find someone who could guide you. We found Buddha. He'll be our guide through to the end of this journey. So, second step is to listen to his teachings. So, this is what we are doing now. We are trying to learn his teaching. The next step is to think through and try to understand his teaching. Fourth step is to practice. So all Buddha's teaching are directed towards finding truth about our sensory perception. About find what is our body, mind, and the external environment. What we call world around us or the universe. So his teachings are recorded in sutras in Tripitaka. So all these sutras help us to find a path or practice. So we could find something more understanding to us and follow it and practice it. So method Buddha used to learn about sensory perception is self-awareness. The self-awareness is taught in mainly 4 ways, which is called Satara Satipatthana. Satara Satipatthana is the awareness of body, the awareness of mind, the awareness of feelings or emotions, the happiness, sadness, or in between. Awareness of phenomena like wisdom, ignorance. So these 4 awarenesses will lead you to find the truth about your existence, about your body, your mind, and the environment around you. So when you listen to or study Buddha's teachings and understand what he is trying to teach and understand his practice, so you have knowledge of what to do. So you have a right view. You have a right path to follow. So with right path, you need to have a right behavior to have self-awareness exercise. Right behavior is called Shila. Your actions and your thinking should be calm. good. Otherwise, you can't have a right mindfulness, right concentration to practice self awareness. So, with right view, with knowledge of right path, with right behavior, with right mindfulness and concentration, you can practice the self awareness, Satara Satipatthana. That practice will bring you to the right wisdom to see the things as it is, called Yatha Bhuta Jnana, the reality of the body, mind, and the environment, the truth about the sensory perception. With right wisdom, it will lead to the end of the desire to have the things the way we want. Once the desire is gone, the suffering would not arise. That will be the end of suffering. What is the reality of the body, mind, and the external world? Can we really see our body? Can we feel our real body? So, can you trust your sight? When you practice self awareness, you can see how sight varies. You can see the weaknesses of the sight. You can see how sight depends on so many various factors. Sight is relative to the so many factors like health of your eyes, the light, the distance. Based on these factors, what you are seeing is different. The same object you see differently. And you can see if you look at the same thing through a lot of different microscopes, you see different things. For example, if you look at your hand through light microscope or electron microscope, you see a lot of different images. So how can you pick which is your real hand? How do you know how your real hand look like? So the image we see is depend on so many factors. We can't pick what is the right image. Also the colors, different animals see different color ranges. Birds see different to humans. So that is the ability they have. So they can see UV and infrared, but we can see in between. So the image we can see is not the real image object out there. And the next question is there a real object out there? That's another question. So you will find the answer when you go deep into your self-awareness. You can see the seeing is a product of consciousness. Seeing produced by consciousness. Different beings have different level of consciousness. So relative to the consciousness, seeing creates. Seeing varies. So when consciousness arises, seeing arises. So that is called eye consciousness, the seeing. And when consciousness arises, hearing arises, that is called ear consciousness. When feeling of taste arises, that is also a rise of consciousness. That is called a tongue consciousness. When feeling of smell arises, that is also a rising of consciousness. That is called nose consciousness. When thoughts arise, that is also a rising of consciousness. That is called mind consciousness. When feeling of touch arise, that is also arising of consciousness. That is called body consciousness. Those are the names just given to identify these 6 different type of consciousness that could arise for a living being. We call living being when this consciousness arise. So due to ignorance, this consciousness is understood differently. That is where the problem arises. When eye consciousness arise, seeing arise. So with ignorance, this seeing interpreted differently as I am looking outside. My eye seeing an object. Actually, what is happening is just an arise of consciousness. So this wrong identification, they all happen because of ignorance, the mind consciousness arising, thoughts arising. So all this existency is a circle of arising and diminishing of consciousness due to ignorance. And consciousness is also depend on the images, sounds, smell, feeling, all those objects created by the perception. Ignorance is trusting what we see, feel, or think is real and out there and it is permanent. Because of this ignorance, the circle of consciousness arising and diminishing continues. That is called samsara. When consciousness arises, the feeling of the matter and feelings of the mental factors arise. That's called nama rupa. The consciousness creates nama rupa, the feeling of objects and feeling of mental factors. And because of feeling of objects and mental factors, consciousness again repeating, coming back again. So this is a vicious cycle. So this cycle called samsara. So only way to get out of this samsara is understanding the reality of the sensory perception. Understanding that seeing is not real. We could never see anything external or anything internal. We just seeing just an image, just a arising of consciousness. Due to ignorance, the duality arises that my eye see outside. But if one day someone could see the reality of seeing, could understand the reality of seeing, that it is just seeing, not anything external or internal, then that wisdom will lead to end the ignorance and the belief of me seeing the external world. That belief is cause for the suffering, that we see external object through our eyes. Actually, the knowledge of the eye is also false understanding, created due to the lack of the wisdom about the consciousness. We cannot never see our real eye. The eye we believe our eye is just an illusion created by consciousness. So when we go into depth of this self-awareness exercise, we can see more into the reality of ourself, our body and our mind. we can understand what is the meaning of existency. Existency is just a rising and diminishing of consciousness due to ignorance. When this consciousness interpreted wrongly due to ignorance, the feeling of me, myself, others, the body, mind, and the universe arise. So, the existence of a living being is a lie. All this understanding come only through the self-awareness meditation. Until that, all this is just a story, just a myth. So unless you research and do self-awareness exercise and find the reality by yourself, you won't believe any of this. You will believe you exist and you are interacting with the others, the environment. And you will believe you have a mind and a body. So that myth, that wrong belief will continue for endless time until you realize who you are. You will have a time, you have a space, and you have a universe until you realize the reality of the consciousness, the reality of the ignorance. So once ignorance is really understood, you'll understand the lie of the existency. This wisdom will lead to nibbida. Nibbida is disappointment of existency. And that disappointment will lead to detachment called viraga. And that detachment will lead you to the liberation of suffering, end of existency. So to start the journey of finding the reality, the truth, need to start with finding someone who could teach you the path, going to the Buddha and learning his teachings. After that, learning his teachings, need to understand what he is trying to teach. After that, need to practice it. So to practice self-awareness, first you need to have a right view of the path, right view of his teachings. After right view, you have to have right behavior. You have to have a proper action and proper thinking. And once you have your thinking and actions calm down, you could have proper mindfulness, right concentration. With right concentration, right mindfulness, the self-awareness will give you the right wisdom, show you the truth, the reality. That right wisdom will take you to the liberation, end of suffering. So I hope this discussion will help you for somewhat for some extent to find the truth, the reality. So may you find the truth. May you get the wisdom, and may you find the liberation from suffering, the end of existence in Nirvana.